Coaching Soccer Weekly, episode 323, Gate 5 and the Quarterback. Entertaining, educational, and inspiring soccer content to help make you a more effective coach, player, or soccer parent. Hello, and welcome back to Coaching Soccer Weekly, presented by World Class Coaching. My name is Sega Rabinovich, and this is the podcast devoted to bringing you cutting-edge methods, techniques, and tactics for coaching soccer. It doesn't matter if you're an experienced coach who has been training teams for many years, or if you're new to coaching and working with a team for the very first time. There's something we can all do to take our coaching to the next level. Welcome back. If you follow me on Instagram, and I'll share all that Instagram information at the end, then today you got a little preview actually during the weekend about what I'm going to talk about today. And it's a really interesting story that I'm going to be talking about. And it just kind of all happened on Saturday, but it started on Thursday. So I'll talk about Thursday first, then I'll talk about Saturday and what happened, and then I'll talk about something that I'm doing, again, kind of still trying to figure out really the specifics of our 9v9 and what I want our players to do, and I'm going to be talking about that through a football lens and an American football lens, since we have some listeners in the UK. So I'm going to be talking about that and kind of how I'm using the quarterback in football, in American football, to really help my players understand what I want my defenders to be doing when we have that ball. A couple of weeks back, I got an email saying that there was going to be a seminar this Thursday. So I registered for that. It was given through Canada Soccer I think it was Ontario Soccer maybe. And it was Beth Priestman, who is the Canadian women's national team coach, and Bob Bradley, who is the Toronto FC coach. So it was an hour long. And what really caught my eye was obviously those two speakers who are legends in their own right. But you got a ticket to the TFC game for free. So I kind of had, for whatever it cost, which wasn't that much, I thought it was really worth it to listen to these two people talk and then go to a game and have some fun. So I got to be completely honest. I was super, super impressed with Bob, and just the way he answered the questions and the way he spoke was really thoughtful, insightful, and just very informative answers. And Bev did a great job too. So I was able to take little snapshots of what they said. And I wanted to start out by reading to you what some of their answers were and just some of the things that they mentioned throughout that hour-long conversation. So here's the first one. And I think this was Bob that said it. I think most of it is actually from Bob, but I'm not 100% sure because it doesn't say who said it. So I'll read it out to you, and then we can kind of talk about it a little bit. So in this situation here, he's talking about the game and the training. So he starts off with, the game and the training should ask players to think and see situations where they've got to make decisions for themselves, and then little by little, you guide them in a way that helps them make the best decision for the team. So I really like that answer, and he was talking again about what to do during training to get them ready for the game. And for me, it's really what I'm trying to do with my training sessions. I'm trying to create a situation that the players face in the game and make them make those decisions and face those decisions and just repeat that over and over again. And they can find different creative solutions for it. So when they're in that game situation, they're not stressed out. So that was the first quote that he mentioned. Now let's talk about the next one. The next one was about leadership. And I'm just going to summarize everything because, again, the words don't really make sense if I read it, just because of the way it was captured. So essentially, the biggest point, they were talking about leadership. They were talking about how they pick their captains and what it really takes to be a good leader. And it was the ability to put your arm around someone. And more importantly, Bob spoke about setting the standard. that it was the job of the leader of the team, the captain, to set the standards and make sure everyone doesn't be not follow, fall below that standard. And for me, I saw something on Instagram, I think it was, that really captures this moment and what he was saying. It was a picture of Keane, who used to be the captain of Manchester United back with Alex Ferguson. And that was kind of the era when you think of the dominant Manchester United teams of the past. And it was a picture of him at the back of the group, and the group was looked like it was a warm up. They were just running around the field to warm up. And the caption below read why he was in the back. And it was because it wasn't that he was slow, it wasn't anything like that. He just had a certain standard for how fast everyone needed to go, and no one could fall behind that. And it was essentially a great image of a captain taking the team and making sure no one falls behind. No one is going to get to a point where we as a team cannot keep the standards that we've established here. So this is where you can't go behind me. You have to stay in front. And essentially everyone in front was that team at that higher level. So I thought that was a really good example of what the coaches talked about in identifying a good captain. And I think it's something really great that we as coaches can bring in. There has to be a certain standard, and we have to do something to make sure that no one falls below that, right? And it's about players being accountable. More importantly, having a leader on the field that helps all the players be accountable. So that was a really good by both speakers there. Now, I asked the last question. I submitted it, and luckily they picked it. It wasn't what I was really looking for, but I'll tell you the question anyway because I thought the answers were really great. So I'll read it out. And let me see where it is. Okay, here we go. What comes to mind when we describe a Canadian women's national team player? What characteristics should we encourage and build to give our youth players the best chance to be a part of the program? So this was directed at Bev. I really wanted an idea of how to build, what characteristics she was looking for to build, not that, sorry, let me start that again. I was really looking for some characteristics that she is looking for when selecting a player. So when she goes out and she's scouting for players, what is she really looking for? Because at that point, everyone is skilled. Everyone is at the top level. So there has to be something that she's looking for. And I think she gave a really good answer. And she spoke about, I'll just read the little part here and then I'll talk about the rest. So I'm going to use the word because I think it was the difference maker between bronze and gold, and they won gold in the Olympics. And you've heard me talk to it, I think is where she was going with it, because she spoke about it a little bit in the past. But I think bravery. I think for me, the players probably don't know how good they were, and actually bravery was what separated us to get that gold. And for her, she talked about that throughout that whole Olympics, the phrase that they used to get everyone pumped up was changing the color of the medal, because the highest before that was bronze that Canada got. So they were changing that color, right, to gold. But I really loved how she spoke about bravery. She spoke about it in length and talked about how important it was that players really show bravery. And then Bob also agreed with her, and he added a word in there, and he spoke about passion. So for them, both of them are looking for bravery and passion, which I think are two really important words that we should be using when talking about, great players. They should be brave, they should be passionate, and I also think they should be creative as well. So really, really great 1 hour. The one thing I would say that I was a little disappointed with was the lack of tactics. I mean, going in, I thought that was going to be a long shot to only have an hour and talk about tactics and all that. And you know me, I love going deep into tactics. So that was the only thing that I missed. But overall, I thought this was kind of where everything was headed, talking about leadership and just really, it was always great to see these amazing icons of the game and people that have been at the top end of the most pressure filled situations that I think the game has to offer, especially Bev, going into an Olympic Cup final and just the amazing work that she's continued from John Herdman. She's had, for those that don't know Bev, she has had an amazing coaching career. She worked under John Herdman, who's the men's coach, and she also worked for the women's English team under Phil Neville. So she's had some really, really great mentors, and now she's doing a fantastic job for the team, and especially for the U.S. Fans out there. I don't think I need to talk about Bob Bradley, who was the men's coach for a long time and now is doing a great job with TFC. So now I'm so excited to talk to you about this. This is something I wanted to share since it happened on Saturday. But let's start on Friday. On Friday, I got an email saying that if I wanted to, I could stay for the second game, that there was going to be a doubleheader. It was TFC against Orlando, and then TFC 2 was playing, which is the second team. And if I wanted to, I could stay for free. So I was pumped. It was going to be a full Saturday of soccer at BMO, which was amazing. So that got me so excited for the game. Now, I live about an hour away from BMO Field with traffic, and I left early and all that and did some other soccer stuff. But essentially, I got to the field about 30 minutes before I was just pulling up into the stadium, and then 15 minutes of parking. And I went in to an area which I've never parked at before. So I just wanted to get into the stadium. And then once I was in the stadium, figure out where my seat was. And I went into gate 5. And what I didn't know was that gate 5 was for VIPs. So I don't know how I got in there, but I should not have been there, is really the point. um, and so I got in, and immediately when I walked in, I saw a buffet, and I was like, this is not where my ticket should allow me to gain access to. And then I turned around, and there was this glass tunnel, and I didn't really think anything of it, went, got food, came back, and I started to see trainers coming out of the room and realized that this was actually the TFC dressing room. And again, if you followed me on Instagram, you saw that this was actually the tunnel of where the TFC were coming out into the field. So I was able to see TFC coming out. I saw Michael Bradley. I saw all the players coming out and the refs and all that, and was able to take a video, and it was amazing. Just a really great, unique experience. And from there, once the players go out, we were able to take our seats. And the way it's structured is that at the end of this glass tunnel, there's a little gap, and that's where you go, because apparently these VIPs that I was in with, they are essentially pitch side, sitting pitch side. So I got out with everyone and went on to the edge of the field. And at that point, I was just really overwhelmed and made a huge mistake, and spoke to one of the security guards being like, look, I am lost. I shouldn't be here. Where do I go? Showed him my ticket, and he points up to the very top corner of the stadium, which made a lot more sense, because I got that free ticket. So I went around, found a seat, hung out for that first game, and then it was great. It was really tough, I thought, to figure out the way they played, and their formation was a 4-3-3, but there were certain points that I just wasn't really sure about. So it was just a lot of fun. And for me, the only team that I really, really analyze is Manchester City. So it was great to just go out, have fun, watch a game. And then for the end of the game, I found my way back to the VIP place because I figured out how to get there again, and then wanted to watch the second game, but the stadium essentially everybody left because it was, I guess, an email that maybe wasn't sent to everyone, or people just had other plans, whatever it was. So during the second game, I kind of knew better, and I went out onto that field and really sat in the front row with these beautiful seats. And not only did I sit in the front row, I sat right beside the bench of TFC2. I'm telling you this story because I was able to do things and see things that I would never normally see, and I wanted to share them with you. Number one, and most importantly, I sat really close to the bench and was really close to the coach's area. So I was able to listen to what the coach was saying throughout the whole game, his trigger words and all that. And that's really what I want to share with you today, talking about that. I also took a video of their dynamic warm up throughout the game just to kind of for my information. And I posted that on YouTube. So that's a Gladiator Soccer Academy if you go in and you want to watch that. So it's 6 minutes of how they do their dynamic warm up for the players. And funny enough, I was sitting in that front row, and behind me was one of the players that subbed in at TFC and played. So he actually used to play for TFC too. So I was able to ask him a lot of questions throughout the game and really understand a little bit more about the team, what was going on, and why the coach was saying what he was saying. Now, the most important thing to understand before I get into things is that TFC2 is really kind of like this transition team, is what I got out of it. And what that means is that they get players, they send players up to the team, they bring in academy players. So it's very tough to get and play a certain style because there's always new players coming in. And there were a lot of new players from talking to one of the players who played for that TFC that sat behind me. There were a lot of new players. There were a lot of academy graduates. So it was what I was hearing was a lot of directions towards the players' positioning, which was really cool. And I was able to much better analyze the game. I really loved how they played. I actually preferred it a lot more than the TFC game, probably because there was less pressure on them because it's a little bit of a lower level, but they kept possession really well. They built out of the back really well, and they just had a plan. And it seemed like even though a lot of the players were new, they had a really great center midfielder who controlled the game really, really well. He's from Spain. He was one of their new signings. I thought their center forward didn't really do that much. They had a really good fullback. Actually, both teams had a good fullback. The TFC2 and TFC had a really great fullback that I thought had a big impact on the game. So it was a really great experience. I spoke to the trainer as well. Just kind of, I wanted to talk to him about FIFA 11. Whenever I see a sports scientist or anything like that, I just want to talk about warm-ups, see if they're using it. And he actually mentioned that he doesn't use it anymore. He just kind of does his own thing, which makes sense if you're, in that industry for so long. You pick up a lot of things just like we do as coaches, and you start to implement your own things. So really great for him. And so let's get into what the coach said throughout the game, which I think is really interesting. He used different trigger words and phrases to get his point across, which again is something that I really love when coaches do. Short phrases and make sure the players understand that. The first thing that he said throughout the game was towards it, which essentially meant that he wants whichever player he was talking to move towards the ball. So he would say things like, he would say a name and he would say towards it, right? Meaning he wants that player to move towards the ball, still keeping that passing lane option. But there was a lot of possession, a lot of finding passing lanes here and there, but towards it was something that he said often, and it just really showed that he wanted players to find a passing lane, but still go a little bit closer to the ball. And that shows me that he really values the short passes, right? Because if you're going towards the ball, you're creating shorter passes. So that was something that was happening. Another one, not the other, another thing that he was saying was take some inches. And I really, really love that. And this was when the other team made a back pass. So whenever they passed, the other team passed the ball backwards, he would say, take some inches. And that was really everybody as a team should be moving up and just keeping them further away from their net and keeping them away from our net and taking those inches so that they're forcing them to go closer to their net. So take some inches was really, really good. I really love that. Take some inches. It's like it's just very specific, I think, in a really great way, because he's not saying push up, push up, push up, which you hear a lot, which is essentially everyone just runs out. He's just kind of saying take some inches. So just move them up, keep moving them up, keep moving them as much as we can, but let's do it slowly. We don't need to, brush everyone out. That doesn't really work. So very controlled and a really great way to say that, which I really liked. The last thing that he would say was available, right? And I love that. I absolutely love that word, available. And I've never really thought of it to use in a coaching context, but that's really what we want out of our players. Be available. Find a way to be available for your teammate with the ball, okay? And it's essentially another way of saying create a passing lane, be open, right? But just the word available, you have to be available. And just saying that over and over again, I think was really great and a really great coaching point to start to use with your team. Be available. Are you available for a pass? Are you available for a shot? All these different things. But when you say the word available, it just triggers that part of you that wants to help. Be available for your teammates. Available. Oh, absolutely love that. So that was really great. So those were the three kind of points that I really saw. But honestly, just a fantastic day to be that close to players of that quality, to see what the actual field is like. I thought it was turf, but the closer I got, it's not turf. It's a grass field. So just really great. A once-in-a-lifetime experience for sure. I don't think I'll ever be able to get into Gate 5. But, hey, if you live in Toronto, now you know the secret. Find a way to get into Gate 5, and you will have one of the best experiences that you'll ever have. I also spoke to some really amazing people when I was in there. Everyone had a wristband but me, so that's how I knew I was not in the right place. But I spoke to actually the commentator of the TFC games. He had a son there, and it was a really nice day. It was really warm, just a beautiful day for soccer. So one of the best experiences I've had, and I was excited to share that with all of you. On Sunday, we had our training, but before that, one of my coaches had his training, and I usually go and pick him up and take him to our training from his training. So I watched them play their League One reserve team. So if you're thinking about the levels in Canada, up to U13, it's district level is the highest, which is what we play. There's, depending on the league you're in, either a tier 1 or tier 2 in the district level. Once you pass U13, then it goes into CSL, which is what it used to be. Now it's called the I model, which is essentially from your district. Now you're playing against other districts. And then from there, you go into OPDL, which is the Ontario Provincial League, Development League, if you want to be specific about it. So that's when you're playing all the best teams in Ontario. And then from there, you're going into League One Reserve, which is essentially kind of like semi-pro. You don't really get paid for it. At least I don't think. I'm not 100% sure. Then from there, you go into League One, which is the highest you can go without being a professional player. Then from there, you go into the CPL, which is the Canadian Premier League. Then from there, I would say the highest level is MLS. So my coach plays for the League One reserve team. And so I went in, just watched the end of the practice when they were playing a game. And I love to analyze, as you know. So I did. And I started to notice certain things that really helped. And yeah, I wanted to share that with you. So when I got there, they were playing 4-3-3 against a 4-4-2. Now, funny enough, the team that was playing 4-3-3 was actually the substitutes, I would say, and they're trying to play a 4-4-2 on defense. Now, the 4-3-3 team was absolutely destroying them. They were keeping more possession and they were getting more chances, and it was just 4-4-2 was a mess, to be honest. And I started to analyze and kind of figure out why, and there were two reasons. If we think about how 4-4-2 matches up, the advantage would be in the defense, right? So if I only have two attackers against four defenders, which is what happened, the advantage is with those four players on defense. And what else ended up happening was instead of just a 4v2, it ended up being a 5v2 because the other team was playing with a center defensive mid and two attacking mids. So with a 4-4-2, it matched up like this. Let's start in the back. Four players against three players, right? Then we have the next four players against two players. Then we have one player free playing in between that four midfield line and the two forward line. And then we have a 2 against a 4. So it ends up being a 5v2, and that's a mess. Unless that's what you want, which is not to be a possession-based team. But here's what made things a lot worse. And this is what I noticed. Because they were able to keep the ball a lot more in the back and they didn't have an advantage in the front, they were sending long balls because, again, think of it like a football game, an American football game. The quarterback, who is that back line essentially, has so much time to make a decision. They've got 90 minutes essentially because there's no pressure on them. So they can take as long as they want with that ball. And all they're looking for is one mismatch, one forward, right, or even attacking midfield to make a run in and behind, and they're through. So the issue was that I noticed was the defensive line on the 4-4-2 team was so close to the attacking 4-3-3 team. There was just, sorry, let me make that more clear because I don't think that was clear. The distance between one defense of that 4-4-2 and the other defense of that 4-3-3 was very small. It was probably like 35 to 40 yards max. So that distance is easily crossed, right? Any player at that level should easily be able to make a ball in over behind for a 35 to 40 yard pass. Like, it shouldn't be that difficult. I would say it was actually a 35 to 30 yard gap between the two defensive lines. So because that line was so high up, it was inviting those balls. And all it takes is one player that's super quick to get through. So the fix should be obvious at this point. If you are playing a 4-4-2 against a 4-3-3 and the other team is just keeping the ball in the back, your defensive line can't be high. They have to push back because you're inviting those long balls. So what you don't want is one player who's super fast to kind of just find that opening, make that run like a wide receiver would, and one of the defender QBs, right, send that ball over, and you had a breakaway. And that's what happened. There were just so many breakaway opportunities and long balls, and the coach was getting so frustrated. But there was such an advantage in the back. And on top of that, the center defensive mid had so much space. So instead of it just being a 35-yard ball, it ended up also being a 25-yard ball, right? Because the center defensive mid had no pressure on them, and all the defenders really had to do was bypass two players with a through ball. The defensive midfield was just in acres of space. He would receive that ball, he could dribble up a little bit, and then find those wingers on the side. So when you're playing against a team, what I got out of this was if they are keeping possession in the back, what they're looking for is a way to get forward. And if you are matched up in the back, 1v1 or 2 against 1, which is fantastic, which is what they were. They had advantage in the back, right? They had 4 against 3, and then they had 4 against 2 in that midfield area. So there should be no reason at all that those balls are getting through. But because they were so close, that's where the trouble came. So instead, what I would say is drop your defensive line back, and then those long balls that you're inviting now make it easier for you to win it, because it's now not a race when two players are starting on the same line, which is supposed to be an offside trap. But why would you need an offside trap? If you have more players and you have an advantage in your defensive area, you don't need an offside trap. Your players have an advantage. Why take that risk of a player being faster than you? And that's really what I got out of it, which was really cool and something that I hadn't really considered before, of having a high line versus a low line. So that was a really cool lesson to watch. And actually, after the game, they were talking tactics for about, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. And one of the players actually made those points. You know, he was saying that their coach was saying, that they would have a 4v2 in their own back, which just wasn't right. It just, a lot of things didn't add up. And then one of the players actually said something, and I spoke to him after, and he's actually a coach for one of the younger teams in the area, which made a lot of sense. But it's really interesting to see how formations going up against each other have an effect on the style of play and how you should adjust your team to be playing in a certain area. Today's main part of the show is brought to you by VO. I absolutely love VO. And all the tactical stuff that I've started doing has really been thanks to VO. You know, it really gives me an opportunity to analyze the game and see tactically what we're missing. And this week on Monday, which was yesterday, we did another Zoom session. And again, being able to watch back a game and really go through the tactical part of it is so important. And it's really thanks to VO. So if you're looking for a VO for your club, we have a really great discount, CSW 100. Please let me know what you think of VO. I know a lot of you have reached out and said that you have your VO and you absolutely love it. So it's a fantastic tool, and I thank VO for sponsoring the show today. So after I watched their practice and really understood that, a light bulb kind of hit that I really want my center defenders to start acting like quarterbacks. I want my forwards to start acting like receivers in football, right? And the idea is that as soon as the defenders have it, we want to start making our runs to play in and over if it's possible. We're not forcing anything, but the idea that I saw was most teams are going to be pushing us up, which is exactly what we want, because there is such a big gap now between the last defender and the goalkeeper. So that giant gap is now a big concern because it's a foot race. And if you put traditionally winger type players, which are fast in, just all about speed, and you put them up against fullbacks who may not be as fast, who are more, have traditionally been, players that have a lot of stamina because they're going up and down the field, probably going to be a lot more tired, then it's a foot race that you can win. And those long balls and are usually through balls between the defender and the fullbacks are really going to get you in behind to create easy chances. I mean, I would rather a chance where it's one goalkeeper against my player and two players running after him, right? So that for me is how we're going to start using our quarterbacks in the back. And what I'm going to start to ask of our players is that before the defender receives that ball, before the center defensive mid also receives that ball, I want them to have a glance and a shoulder check to my wingers and see if they can really cross that ball through. And I want my wingers to start making those runs. And what's really great about U12 is that there's no offside yet. So the first thing for this whole year we can talk about with those wingers is getting in behind. Okay. I want you to start with that forward and then make a run. And once they're used to that, and they will get used to that over the whole year, then we introduce the offside trap. And then all they have to do is just adjust their run a little bit so that they're not offside. And that's done by going on the offside line and then making your run as soon as that ball is being played. So you're gaining some distance from the defender that you're playing against. So our next practice is going to be on Wednesday, and that's something that we're really going to work on. I really want the players to see that long ball. And it's funny, I started my coaching journey building out of the back, and that was it. Build out of the back. You must build out of the back. Then transitioned into the whole idea of just getting the ball to the opponent's half so we can use our half as a safety. And now the ability to read the defense to see if there's a giant gap. And if there is, let's play that long ball. So starting one way and then just kind of ending up on the opposite way really shows, I think, growth and being open to things. A lot of the time as coaches, we just kind of, and I'm so guilty of this, just kind of we're set in our ways and that's it. This is the way we play no matter what. But soccer continues to evolve, and I've been coaching for 10 years. I'm still not at the highest level. I'm still not a master of any sorts at all. And being able to be open-minded and watch games and watch other people's training sessions will really help you grow as a coach. And for me, this is why this podcast was so important at the start of my coaching career until, Tom retired from the show. It's so important to get other people's perspective. And I did an episode about this when I had the Bayern Munich coach, when he came in and spoke at the Ontario Soccer Convention a long time ago. And coaches were so critical. And it's not about being critical with other coaches. It's about what can you learn from it. Yeah, you're not going to agree with everything. And yeah, a lot of the stuff that they're saying you might think is wrong and all that. But try and find something. And if you grow by a little every single time you see something, then it's just going to make a huge impact on your coaching. Just having that open mind. And nothing frustrates me more when I see coaches that just don't have an open mind. So for me, this transition has nothing to do with the way we train, by the way. We are still training the same 1v1s, rondos, everything is the exact same. But the way that we play the game is going to continue to change, and it's going to continue to evolve. We're still doing the same things. We're still asking our players to build out of the back. It's not that we're not, but we're really starting to look forward first, right? Can we keep that ball, but can we get it up to the players, to the other team's half, right? So we're not just kicking it away. That's not it. And then once we're there, can we establish our team and use the safety if we need to, right? Go back to our half only when we need to switch that ball, only when we need an absolute safety. We don't really want to play in our half anymore. And then now transitioning to, okay, let's play in their half. But if they're having a very high line, Let's exploit that. Why are we trying to play through when there is a really easy solution to it? So this is just kind of, again, where I'm evolving to, and I'm going to continue to grow with it. There was one last thing that I wanted to talk about today, and it was something that happened to me this past week. We had a player who uh, the parents wanted him at a higher level, and I didn't really think it was a good idea, but essentially they wanted to try it and all that. And it ended up with the player not wanting to play anymore because my thoughts were, he was playing against bigger, stronger, faster kids and just getting demotivated in all of the 1v1s. So the dad brought him in. And what the dad said to me before was that he refuses to talk about soccer. He doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't want to be a part of it. None of that. And, he asked me if I knew why. And then I told him that, that this is kind of what I was thinking. I didn't really want him to go and play up with bigger, stronger players. But, you guys really wanted that. So regardless, he came to the training and agreed to talk to me. And I knew going into that conversation that I couldn't ask him what's wrong. Because when you ask a kid what's wrong and they don't want to say it, they're just going to say, I don't know. And I think we've all seen that. So I need to find a different approach. I needed to ask it in such a way that will allow him to say what was on his mind, but not feel attacked, not really feel like I was judging him, none of that. So the way that I started that conversation was with three words that are so powerful, and it's help me understand. Help me understand why you don't want to come to soccer anymore. And what that shows is that you just want to understand where they're coming from. You're not looking to judge them. You're not looking to, you know, you're looking for them to try and help you gain their perspective. And at that moment, when I said those words, he opened up. And all he said was, when we're playing one against one, I always get scored on and I never score. And that is exactly what I thought what the issue was. So I said to him, okay, that's fair. What if we put you down in a level where you can score more goals? Would that help you want to play soccer again? And he said, yes. So we did put him down in a lower level, which is where he was originally before the parents wanted him to move up. And he had fun. He had fun on the 1v1s, and he was right back into the fun, happy, smiling, laughing type of kid that he was before. So the reason I share that story with you is there's a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is parents at certain times, they're not going to agree with you as a coach. And I've had this happen multiple times where the parent has, said, can my player go play at the higher level? And we don't do things by age, so we do it by skill level. So there's a lot of movement within the academy. And even though you say, I don't think it's a good idea, sometimes the parents insist on it. And, I don't mind, because the way that we play, if a player wants to go play with stronger, bigger kids and they can handle it, fine. But all I can do is give my recommendation. And that's what I did. And the other reason is because this is a situation that you're going to come across a lot as a coach, I think. It's been something that I've seen a lot. There are certain times where players come off the field and their head is down. Something happened during that game, during that practice, during that situation, and you just don't know why. And when you're sad, there are certain times where you just don't want to talk to anyone. You don't want to vent about things. You don't want to complain. You just want to be sad. So going up to a player and saying, help me understand, is a really good way to open that dialogue, because you're not looking to fix the problem. You're not looking to, at least in the mind of the child, you're not looking to fix that problem, right? You're not looking to address it. You're not looking for anything from that child other than help me understand why what you're feeling is what you're feeling. And when they give you that, then you can analyze. Then you can, think about the solutions, think about all that. But at the moment, when someone is sad, the best thing to do is listen and try and get them to open up. And the best way that I found to do that is help me understand. Help me understand why this is what you're feeling. So I thought this was a really powerful story. I'm not going to mention names, obviously, and things like that, but it's something to keep in mind. You know, we want to understand the players. And when I listened to Bob and Bev talk, the great thing about that was they spoke a lot about their relationship with the players and how important that was. It was so much more important, I think, for the coaches at the top level than the tactics and the practices and all that. It's really the relationship that you can create with that player and being able to get the best out of them through that situation. Thanks for listening to another episode of Coaching Soccer Weekly. I had a really interesting week with some really unexpected adventures, but for me, the most important thing with my coaching journey is that I continue to learn. I always look for people that can really help me just become better with new ideas and a different perspective than what I have. I think that's the best way to grow as a coach. Next week, we still don't have a game, so I'll be working with our 9v9s. I honestly don't think we'll be ready for outdoor yet, but that's okay. It's really going to be that journey getting us ready for that 11v11. Our 2013s are a brand new team, so I think they're also going to struggle. So our 2012s are really going to be the one that have a really good foundation of the 7v7 and are going to do really well this outdoor season. I'll be back next week, not really sure what I'll talk about. So until then, enjoy the journey, enjoy the moments, but most importantly, enjoy the game. Coaching Soccer Weekly is a production of World Class Coaching. All rights reserved.